Welcome back to my live stream. We're going to talk about Monday Night Raw. It came on early today. Going to do it tonight so I can show you all the other podcasters here. This is Jacob Cast 2024. Alright. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. We're going to do our Monday Night Raw review, October 13, 2025. Hit that like button, leave a comment, please subscribe to my channel, let me know in the comment section below you guys want to see more. My video is sponsored by my favorite podcasters and YouTubers, Fightful Pro Wrestling, Solomon the Sound Off, JD from New York, Good My Work Commentary, Just Alec, Joe Cronin, Denise Salcedo. I got more on the way, so hit that like button. This live stream gonna be like an hour and 10 minutes. Now we are going to talk about Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw was on early tonight. It came on at 8 o'clock in the morning. Cause they were in Perth, Australia. I think it was 2 hours and it might have been 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now not much happened on the show. The only big ending, I think the big shock was the Vision turned on Seth Rollins. We are going to talk about it. Seth Rollins is no longer the leader. Paul Heyman, Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker, they turned on them. They kicked out Seth Rollins. That was the big shot, the big swerve. I couldn't believe it. I think it might be a troll, or it might be part of the storyline, or part of the plan, or this is legit. The Vision is no more. What a waste of the storyline. We'll have to wait and see what happens next week when we get back to the States. But either way, let me show you what happened on Monday Night Raw. We had a pretty good IC title with Dominic and Penta. Asuka versus Rhea Ripley was a very good match. Bronson Reed defeated Jimmy Uso. We had a very good tag team match with Judgment Day, Roxanne and Raquel versus Lyra and Bayley. And we had a triple threat match. Jey Uso, LA Knight, and CM Punk. CM Punk got the victory. He the rightful number one contender to face Seth Rollins for the world title. I don't think it's next week. They might do it at Sunday main event. I don't know if they're gonna wait for Survivor Series War Games. Obviously, Dominic retained. We know that Rusev is still in line to defeat Dominic. Rhea Ripley won. Bronson Reed beat Jimmy Uso. After he won, Jey Uso came out to help his brother from the visit beatdown. We didn't see Roman Reigns. He might come back for Christmas. Maybe he'll come back for Survivor Series. We just won't know. I think Bayley and Lyra won this match. Did they? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Roxanne Perez confronts Stephanie Valkyrie. So clearly they're setting that up. Style turned Dom complaint into a title opportunity. Maxine Dupree reveals he challenged for the IC title. New number contender. Rollins opened up his feelings to Paul Heyman. The Usos discover what happened with Roman Reigns. Rusev issued chilling warning to Penta. Asuka slapped Kairi Sane for blaming her for crown jewels. Rollins claimed he built Punk and Roman Reigns. Hold on. Lyra Valkyria slapped Bayley to get a win over Roxanne. So I believe that they won. And CM Punk won the main event. Alright, now let me try and get into some of the other podcasters and YouTubers. I just want to show y'all some of my guys. I'm going to let in the super chat so you guys can hear their commentary. Monday Night War was alright. I think the only big thing to talk about is the heel turn. What do you guys think of them turning on Seth Rollins and how it happened? I'm going to show y'all some of the podcasters first.
If you're an illegal alien, this runway is
Hold on.
because you're headed home. I'm Christy Nome, the United States Secretary.
Alright.
Well, the vision is officially over. Your boy C-Jax is off his trip. I'm back home, you know what I'm saying? So your boy can finally, yeah! And it's just as simple as that. I predicted this in my review. Nothing that happened at Crown Jewel will be talked about after Crown Jewel that happened 2 days ago, besides Cena and AJ Styles. That will be talked about probably for years to come, but everything else, no one will mention anything else that happened on that show, besides the fact that maybe Roman Reigns got pinned by Bronson Reed, but even that doesn't really matter, and we'll explain that in a second. But I mean, listen, I don't believe that.
Alright. Hold on.
Today I'm reacting to your Monday Night Raw Hot Take. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether those are good thoughts, bad thoughts, or everything in between about the world of professional wrestling. On vacation more. Maybe then finally The Rock will return and pay off this stupid storyline that he never paid off. The turn is great and unpredictable, but surely it would have made more sense if it happened after Survivor Series. Nothing makes sense right now for the men's War Games match. However, this can obviously change. I'm not kidding when I say that this is groundbreaking and fundamentally changes WWE storytelling for the foreseeable future for the next 10, 15 years. And that's talking really further into the future, but it really shakes things up here in the short term, because you're right, I have no earthly clue what in the world they're planning for Survivor Series War Games. Let's not forget that CM Punk won this match in the main event to get himself a World Heavyweight Championship opportunity, something that absolutely nobody is talking about. So are we still running CM Punk versus Seth Rollins? What's going on with the Vision? Is the Vision not going to be the fundamental evil force going into the men's War Games match? Is it now going to be MFT versus the Wyatts? I have no earthly clue. Luckily, when it comes to Survivor Series War Games, they have about a month and a half to actually build to this, which is nice. Which is actually a change of pace that WWE doesn't have to build a PLE with just 2 weeks. Yes, we have Saturday night's main event, but that's in 2 weeks, and then after Saturday night's main event, WWE still has a whole month to build to Survivor Series War Games, so there are going to be a lot of winding roads, a lot of forks on the road towards this road to Survivor Series War Games. And right now, we're frankly just way too far out from Survivor Series War Games for me to really be able to come up with even a remotely close idea as to what they might actually execute at this show. I have no clue where this is going. That turn was way too fast for a Triple H booking, planting the seeds at the beginning and already the tree grew by the end of the episode. Shocking, but I loved it. This goes against everything that Triple H has created in terms of expectations for his storytelling, because we know that Triple H has fallen in love with this idea of long-term storytelling to the point where it's kind of gotten annoying in that all of the major things only tend to happen really far out at major shows like the WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, and SummerSlams of the world. Gone were the days of quick, bite-sized storytelling that happened instantly, that got paid off quickly. We are now in the era where they're dangling the fruit in front of you for months and months and months, or in the case of poor Austin Theory, literal years. So it is refreshing that WWE decided to pay off, like you said, planting a seed and having the tree grow all within the very same episode of Monday Night Raw. And this was a huge statement to make, and it's gotten to the point where I'm wondering, why did they pull the trigger on this as quickly as they did? Were they maybe bored of the Vision, and maybe they were blaming the Vision for some of the lackluster storytelling recently? Is Seth Rollins hurt? Is WWE just so enamored with Braun Breaker that they want to push him to the moon now? All I have is questions, and to me that's a good thing, right? I'm intrigued in WWE storytelling for the first time in months months, I'm now finally invested in something. And this just goes to show that sometimes you can just take the low-hanging fruit and deliver on storylines, deliver on expectations quickly, rather than just pushing them off for years or months. In this case, they didn't just, delivered it quickly in one PLE cycle. They literally did it in one episode, which was...
Why the hell is there a commercial after that?
In this case, they didn't just, delivered it quickly in one PLE. Little bit perplexing. Thank you so very much for watching this episode.
I'm going to show y'all the other podcasts.
With
They're
surprises
post
and things that
wrestling.
you never see coming. If you were paying half attention to this show, everything led to this closing angle. It was laid on so thick. The only thing was, I was not expecting it to happen when it did. And that was the surprise element. But they were going so heavy that it was so clear that the fracture is occurring. So anyway, sorry, you were going to
Well, I was going to say, especially if you, if you watch really any of them, but especially Paul Heyman, in like digging for photos for the thumbnail for this, I mean, they got some really great shots of Heyman, just like you could tell in the background, eyeing specifically, not just Rollins, but the championship in particular. And so,
Is that WrestleMania?
Is that Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins? Yes, yeah, perhaps.
Forget about that kick from last week. So I guess if Penta loses, that is so apologetic.
Alright, let's show the other podcaster. Let's show, Denise Salcedo. Right here, the great one.
People Division just turned on Seth Rollins. Well, I surely wasn't expecting that. I saw the copyright logo, right? I started writing my script. I wrote we got the Division in general. He chose to get the...
Hold on.
What in the...
Try to show you all the other podcasters here.
What's up? But Division has not been a thing for a long time. But they knew. And PC has been saying it every single week when we do these Raw reviews. It's not working. Because...
Yeah, we all knew that.
Man, stop.
It's true. I don't know if he was the main eventer in his local territory or what. In any event, the Wrestle Dreamer.
Now we will talk about TNA, because TNA was on last night. Let's go into Denise Salcedo.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the WWE Raw Post Show. It's your girl, Denise Salcedo. I am writing solo today, and I'm like, okay, first of all, Bronson, he looks like he's drinking the juice, right? Like, he looks like he's buying into what Steph's saying. So, good poker face, Bronson, good poker face. But Braun Breaker, during the segment, I said, you know what? He doesn't look convinced. He doesn't look like he's really happy about being there with Seth Rollins. He doesn't look like he cares. Like, he looks suspicious. And I thought, okay, they're probably going to start inkling a little bit closer to that Braun Breaker turn. But I wasn't expecting it tonight. They legitimately surprised me. Like, honest to God, surprised me this morning with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman also turning on Seth Rollins. Cue the explosion here. That is it. The Vision is no more, okay? Braun Breaker turned, then followed by Bronson, and then Paul Heyman. I wasn't sure if Paul Heyman was gonna, throw himself on the floor and be like, oh my God, Seth Rollins, or what he was gonna do, and he ended up raising the arms of both Bronson and Braun Breaker. And I was so happy about this outcome. And the reason I was so happy is because I was over the Vision in a couple of ways. We've all were excited about the Vision when Braun Breaker joined, right? When Braun Breaker joined, it was like, okay, cool, like, this is, where business is rolling. And from the very beginning that Braun Breaker joined the Vision, we all knew that the end game was going to be him eventually turning on Seth Rollins. Like, we've always known that this was going to be the end game, but we didn't necessarily know when that matchup was going to be when that moment was going to be taking place, when that matchup would be taking place. We didn't know any of those other details, right? It was just like a wait and see game. Now, I feel like for the most part, a lot of different storylines on WWE. Triple H has sort of been slow walking the dog, where he takes his time with certain things, and we've been waiting for certain things to happen, and it's been a slow burn. I am thrilled that this moment happened today and that it wasn't a slow burn. I think they had an appropriate amount of time where it felt like, all right, we've done what we could with this story and it is now over. I like this because I wasn't a big fan of the Vision because there was like the beginning portions of it. I remember being on here talking about how I didn't like that Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed were looking like they were working for Seth Rollins instead of being like a cool friends group where, you know, they're all bad guys but they're friends. Instead of being presented like that, they were more so presented as almost like Seth Rollins' goons. And I didn't like that. I felt like it took away from Bronson Reed, and I thought that it took away from Braun Breaker. And I did not love that. I didn't love how that made him look. And even today, we had a 20-minute promo from Seth Rollins, and we were sitting here being like, oh my God, like there was a lot of people that were in the watch along, that were in the chat, were like, yo, like this Seth Rollins promo, like we gotta wrap it up. We gotta wrap it up. Because there was a lot of the same things that we hear each and every single week. And that kind of gets old, right? Like every time you hear Seth Rollins do the same bits over and over. And even in the beginning, when Seth Rollins, there was multiple signs, guys, even before that backstage segment. If you guys recall, Seth Rollins told Braun Breaker, like, oh yeah, your career so much better now that you're here with the Vision, and you know all of these great things has happened to you, and blah blah blah, right?
Why is there a commercial?
So much better now that you're here with the Vision, and you know all of these great things has happened to you, and blah blah blah, right? And I remember when he said that, I was like, nothing has really happened to Braun Breaker since he joined the Vision. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he was a former Intercontinental Champion even before he joined the Vision. So it's not like Braun Breaker's life has drastically changed in the Vision, right? So I kind of thought, like, okay, that's kind of BS, right? But then when he went to Bronson Reed, though, like, I wasn't expecting Bronson to turn either. I almost thought Bronson was going to stick around with Seth, so stick around with, or Bronson was in the Vision. So Bronson, things have been going pretty all right for him. Like, he just defeated Roman Reigns. But here's the thing. He just defeated Roman Reigns. That means his ego and his confidence as at an all-time high coming off of Crown Jewel percent made it worth it. And this was the right way to go. This was the right way to end it. We had, you know, this show was in Perth, Australia. A lot of us in the United States, we were kind of stuck with crappy time slot, but it's okay because, you know, other places get screwed all the time with crappy time slot. I honestly, if we would have gotten everything that we got on Raw today, minus this Braun Breaker Bronson Reed moment, I would have been like, yeah, I didn't have to wake up at 5 a.m. to do this. I could have probably skipped this week. No big deal. I probably would have thought that. But with this explosive ending to the show in Perth, Australia, which Perth, Australia, phenomenal job as a crowd, by the way. They fucking killed. When he won his number one contendership match against Jey Uso and LA Knight, I started thinking, okay, like, obviously I'm a big CM Punk fan, but I've been there, seen and done that, right? Like, I wasn't necessarily losing my mind because CM Punk was the new number one contender to face Seth Rollins. I wasn't. We've been there, seen and done that multiple times. So for them to have this explosive ending was 1,000% the way to go, because if not, it was going to start to feel like very repetitive. It was going to start to feel like there was nothing new and lively on the show. So great ending to Monday Night Raw. It made it worth me waking up at 5 a.m. to watch the show. So thing suddenly to happen here tonight. They had a lot of really great ingredients in the Vision. I mean, you had Paul Heyman, who works very well with a lot of like wrestlers in terms of like presenting exciting things that we should have. Honestly, I don't even think Seth should have like a full new faction. Maybe he can make some friends, cool. But like we just saw right now, like the faction with Seth and a bunch of guys doesn't work. If they were to recreate a different version, the Vision 2.0, when they're saying it, hey, eventually these guys are representation in the ring. That's me. So, a little bit different situation.
Alright, let's show the other podcasters. Let's do Fightful with Sean Seth.
NBA 2K26 on PlayStation 5. Check this. Oh, watch me hit this.
So, I'm with Dark State. They didn't book the show. But why are they attacking these two? But that Dominic should earn the respect of Ray.
First and foremost, the old Kyrie thing, thank God.
No, it's an option. And this is a source that
sometimes the tan could be a little too extreme.
They're going to no DQ.
Down there, and Penta took out Rusev with a dive, typical stupid baby face. Then Dominic, while this was, and he also had his championship, he dropped the title in the ring, and when the referee was grabbing the title and the 619 and the big splash. Dominic's great. I mean, he's really at the top of his game here, and he's doing the Eddie Guerrero lying, cheating, and stealing, and the fans totally accept it. They love that Dominic is like the new version of Eddie Guerrero. That's really what he's become. He's got that neck tattoo now. He's got tons of ink. Think about when he first came into WWE. He barely had any tattoos, and now he's we had those. With the Uso splash, I figured that they were WrestleMania.
Alright, now let's show the other podcasters. Who else did I miss here? Seth Rollins retires, injured. Yeah, right. Making sure I didn't miss no one else around here. Is that the same one?
What is
Fall off on the wall.
The group wasn't working! Rip the Band-Aid off! Now, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not in 2026. But if for a little bit, I would hope not. Not with a... That was an epic show! That was awesome!
Alright.
The community has to stop embellishing, over-exaggerating. These shows.
Mike Santana, new champion. Team 3D retires. Slater and Evans ruin TNA Bound for Glory 2025 review. That was last night on Sunday. Trick Williams and Mike Santana were for the TNA World title. It was a very good match. Trick Williams lost the TNA title.
same.
Alright, now let's go into the other podcasters that I'm going to show y'all. WWE departure. Okay. Let's go into Salamanca sound off. Now they're gonna talk about why there was a waste. If the Division really over, what was a waste of a storyline, and what's gonna happen for War Games?
The gasp from the audience there in Perth. You could see the look on Paul Heyman's face and Bronson Reed's face as well, that this was something that they were not expecting. And then Braun Breaker gets to his feet. He looks over at Bronson Reed, gets right up at his face, and he makes it very clear. He goes, "You're either with me or you're not." And at that point, Bronson Reed decides to go up and deliver a tsunami splash to Seth Rollins. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are still together. And then there's the little issue of Paul Heyman. You know, Paul Heyman did what Paul Heyman would do in a situation like this. He tucked his tail.
I feel like a lot of people are turning on the Superman.
Seth Rollins leaving WWE.
They're like, no, never mind.
Hold on.
Like this, he tucked his tail, and he went with the path of least resistance because he did not want to get killed. And so he raises both men's arms. We have a new vision. It is one person shorter than it was before. And that is how Raw went off the air, with Seth Rollins having been edged.
Enough media attention.
Oops. What the hell?
Edged out of the vision. What happened to Edge in the Judgment Day is what happened here effectively to Seth Rollins in the vision. And the funny thing is, the Judgment Day turned out okay, actually, after they kicked out Edge. And it was a similar situation because I remember at the time it was a shocking thing. And I remember watching that going, boy, that happened awfully quick. And they replaced him with Finn Balor. And here we are, how many years later now? 2.5 years later, probably, and the Judgment Day is still a thing.
Yeah.
But that's what that reminded me of, and that is how Raw went off the air with that.
Yeah, it's very similar to when they kicked out Judgment Day, but the difference is Judgment Day was a lot better than the Vision, and it was definitely needed. I mean, Ed was actually boring. Ed was kind of boring, being the leader of Judgment Day. Every time he does these promos, it's the same thing here with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins cutting same old promos that have been boring, they've been dull. I think Braun Breaker and Bronson were being held back. They were pretty much lacking. They were pretty much Seth business. They were pretty much his sidekicks or bodyguard. So it wouldn't really do much for them. But they only focused on Seth Rollins.
Major angle. You know, we often I talk about it, but I know other people do as well. We talk about over the last several months, and really for much of this year, because I remember first talking about this in the fall last year. So we're going back a year, like around Survivor Series time. Triple H tends to play it safe. He plays it a little too safe sometimes, to the detriment, I think, sometimes of the product, where things just become very stale. And this has been an issue that I've talked about recently with the overall WWE product, where there's just nothing terribly exciting going on. And there's certain stories that you can kind of see where it's headed, and you can almost map the whole thing out in your head. But like the week-to-week television is just a drag, you know, a lot of the time. And especially on the SmackDown side, in many ways, I've been just sort of begging for some sort of shake-up, and it looks like they recognize that there's issues because now they've added people supposedly to the creative team, and they recognize that there are problems that have to be addressed on Friday night. But that's been one of the marks against Triple H. Sometimes he leaves things to cook a little too long in the kitchen. And whether this, what we saw here at the end of this show, you know, whether this was the plan all along or whether this was done out of necessity, this is the sort of thing that I like to see. This right here, what we saw at the end of this Raw show, is the type of thing that I am hoping to see. Not shocking people for the sake of swerving them. Bro. Like, we're not looking to just shock people just for the shock factor of it, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. There's a difference between doing that and having these moments where you can really, truly shock people with something unpredictable. And the funny thing is, what happened here actually was very predictable, just the timing of it was very unpredictable. There's a difference between doing it for the sake of doing it and doing it when you have a plan in mind.
I thought they might do it after War Games or something, if the Vision were lost to the baby faces. But they did it here. And it made you wonder, did Seth Rollins need to beat Cody Rhodes? Because what Paul Heyman said last week to Seth Rollins, everything said, if you don't beat Cody Rhodes, I'm going to regret choosing you over Roman Reigns and CM Punk. Now I thought maybe Seth sure lost to Cody Rhodes, because here maybe it'll make sense. He lost, he's now a loser, and Paul Heyman said you failed the Vision, and now give him a reason to turn on him. But then he beat Seth Rollins. Well, he won by cheating. No one else interfered, but he won by cheating. And they just turned on him. So that tells me, was this like a last minute decision, or I don't know.
For where you want to go with things.
I thought they might do it like after Survivor Series. Now, what does it mean for War Games? Or I think this is all swerve, because when are we gonna get Punk and Rollins? Are we really gonna wait a whole month until Survivor Series to get Punk and Rollins, or are we gonna get them at the Saturday main event, which is on November 1st? It is all like a swerve to trick, to fool CM Punk and everyone to think that Rollins is all alone. He's by himself. He's vulnerable. He might lose the title. Maybe we could get a new member. Maybe we could get Austin Theory or Dragunov or Brock Lesnar. I'm not sure. And then they'll screw Punk and align with Rollins, and then we're right back to the division. And then we're gonna build up War Games. If not, then who can be in War Games? Don't tell me we're gonna get the Y6 and the MFTs. Who the hell wants to see that? Those are not fashion that no one's interested in. The Y6 is not that over. And no one cares about the MFT. No one cares about Solo. And they're not the main focal point on SmackDown. The Vision have been the main focal point since WrestleMania.
Even if it ends up being a plan B, it's like, okay, we're going to go with a plan B because there were extenuating circumstances and we got a good idea for where we're going to go with this, or we're going to cut out some of the middle part of the story here and get to the next chapter because this was the inevitable conclusion to the existing chapter, right? And that's what I'm hoping is the case here. Shocking people in a way that makes things on the show even more exciting. And you watch this and you wonder, why now? Why would they do this now? Was this really the plan? I want to read this to you from PW Insider. They posted this earlier today. Because the first thing that you think when you see something like this is he hurt? Is it an injury? Or is he pulling the wool over everyone's eyes like he did a couple of months ago heading into SummerSlam? But this is what PW Insider had to say. The angle on Raw earlier today with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker turning on Seth Rollins was necessitated by Seth Rollins suffering an injury at Crown Jewel over the weekend. The belief is that Rollins hurt his left shoulder landing while executing the coast-to-coast dive towards an upside-down Cody Rhodes, who was hanging in the turnbuckles. There is no official word on the nature of the issue, but Rollins was seen sporting a sling in a photo that he took with a fan on Sunday evening in Australia. We are told he will be undergoing testing in the coming days. And I feel like we've been through this before, haven't we? Where we hear about a potential injury to Seth Rollins, and we hear about testing is going to have to take place before they can diagnose what the issue is. And then we see how things turned out at SummerSlam. So if you are someone who is suspect of this, if you are someone who, because as I recall, Mike Johnson, there was conflicting reporting about the Seth Rollins thing back in July when it happened. And Mike Johnson, who is generally very reliable, on PW Insider, was adamant that Rollins was hurt. And as it turned out, Rollins was not hurt. And he cashed in his money in the bank, and he won the World Heavyweight Championship. So you have to leave open the possibility that, yes, they are trying to work people. Because they literally just did an angle a few months ago where they tried to work people. And I think by the time we saw it play out, a lot of people kind of had it figured out. Like, I don't know if I really, I didn't buy into the injury. But, a lot of people did. So you do have to leave that possibility open for sure. But if he is hurt, the brutal irony of Seth Rollins faking a knee injury just a few months ago, only to then suffer a very real injury, that is not lost on me. As I think about what's going on here, that was one of the first thoughts that popped into my head. Here he had an injury in July, supposedly, that was going to derail his entire championship hopes and aspirations. He's got the briefcase, and then it was all fake, and he won the title, and now here we are with an injury. And we don't know if it is an injury, the severity of it. It doesn't mean that he won't be wrestling CM Punk at Saturday night's main event, right? It may be serious enough that he is not going to be medically cleared, right? We may end up having a championship vacated before long. Or maybe it's an injury, but not so severe that he can't, wrestle Punk or drop the title to Punk, right? It's Saturday night's main event. But here we are now faced with a very real possibility that what was fiction may now be playing out as reality. And it makes me wonder, Dave Meltzer in The Observer last week had the rumored lineup, the rumored teams for the men's and women's War Games matches at Survivor Series. And I talked about this on the podcast this weekend. And it makes me wonder, depending on what's going on here, like, did someone leak that to Meltzer? Because you look at what happened here, this would blow up, right? All those War Games plans. Well, what if it's not an injury? What if this was planned all along? What if that information was leaked intentionally to mislead people? Because I absolutely believe that WWE will, at least sometimes, feed misinformation to people like him and others to try to swerve them and throw them off, if they have creative plans. I wouldn't, put it past them at all. Was it a case where there's a real injury and certain plans that were in place simply got bumped up? Right? That's also a possibility. The teams that he had listed in The Observer was Punk, Roman, Jey Uso, Jacob Fatu, and how he would be worked into this, we don't know. And then a fifth spot that was open either for Jimmy Uso or LA Knight. That was going to be the babyface team. And on the other side, you would have the Vision. You would have Seth Rollins, you would have Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Brock Lesnar, and then Austin Theory. It's as if you pulled a name out of thin air. Talk about a name that we haven't heard about in a very long time. Talk about a name that has been a comedy goofball figure on the show now for the last couple of years. And I'm reading this the other day, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's on the heel side in War Games? Like, you have to just do a double take when you read something like that. So, how does this affect War Games plans? Does the Punk match happen now? Punk is the number one contender. The belief is that he would be challenging on November 1st for the World Heavyweight Championship. Does that happen? Does Seth Rollins have to be stripped of the World Heavyweight Championship if he has a serious shoulder injury? Because I went back and I watched that spot, and you could tell he landed very hard on that shoulder. So it would not at all surprise me if he did something to his shoulder or his collarbone or something on that landing, because it was actually pretty impactful. When he landed, I mean, it was a spectacular move. It looked great visually, but he clearly, was in a position where he could have very seriously injured himself. Let's game this out and say that it's a legit injury and Seth can't even go, and he has to vacate the championship. What do you do then? Who does CM Punk challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship? I have an answer. His name is Braun Breaker. That's who. Did you hear that crowd in Perth at the end of that segment when he picked up the World Heavyweight Championship and he held it up? The reaction that got? I don't know that these people really want to continue booing him, but you could continue to push him as a major heel, and eventually he's going to be a huge babyface. But when he picked up that championship, I mean, there was a notable reaction from the crowd. And we know, as far as, Braun Breaker is concerned, that he has been groomed for some time now as the future. From the moment that we first saw him walk in on 2.0, and if you remember the first person that he confronted on NXT 2.0, that first episode, remember the very end? The very last scene of that episode was LA Knight, funny enough. But from the moment we saw him on that show, it was very clear they were grooming him to be the next big thing, right? The purpose of the Vision. Let's talk about the purpose of the Vision. When this faction was formed earlier this year, what was the real goal, the real end goal? What should be the real end goal of this group? This group is not meant to get Seth Rollins over. Seth Rollins has been on WWE television for 10 years. Seth Rollins is almost 40 years old. They have a lot of 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds on that roster. But Seth Rollins has been around forever. Seth Rollins is over. Seth Rollins is a world champion, former world champion. You don't need to get Seth Rollins over. The goal of the group was to elevate Braun Breaker and to a lesser extent Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed is not going to be the guy in WWE. Bronson Reed is not as young as Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker is the crown jewel of this group. It was always about getting him over. And the end goal of this was always going to be, or should have been, to have him break out of the pack and attack Seth Rollins, turn on Seth Rollins, probably end up being a babyface, but that was the end goal here. If there's a very real injury and they have to speed up whatever their plans were, then you know what? Break glass in case of emergency and move to phase 2. I'm here for it. I love this shit. I don't like the fact that Seth may have gotten hurt. I think that sucks, and it's terrible for him, and I'm sure it ruins a whole bunch of plans. But my attitude about this whole thing is, because I see a lot of divided opinion about this, and this was rushed, and this was this, and this was that. I cannot come on here and talk about this show every single week, and how boring some of these Vision segments can be, and how boring some of these Seth Rollins promos can be, where he comes out and he cackles and he does his catchphrase, I'm a revolutionary, I'm this, I'm that, right? It's the same shit every week. There are times when Seth Rollins can be really, really good and engaging, and there are a lot of times where I just tune out from what he's doing. And it's true, the Vision has not been around for even a full year yet, right? They're still, when you compare them to the Bloodline and the Judgment Day and some of the other groups in this company, they're still a baby, right? They're still very much barely out of the womb. But they've been around now for several months. And I'm already getting very bored of the Vision every single week. And they come out and they attack and they spear and they lay people out. And it's like, how many times are we going to see that before we either add a new member or we introduce some sort of chaos into the situation, or we introduce some sort of dissension within the ranks? We plant little seeds. The signs were there. The signs were planted, at the very least, they were planted in the opening segment tonight. Because in the opening segment tonight, Seth Rollins flat out said, I don't need these men. I don't need them. I can do this on my own. I won the World Heavyweight Championship on my own. I don't need them. But these are the men that I have brought in, and these are the men that choose to follow me. I chose them. They chose me. But that was the biggest seed that you could possibly plant, because how does a Braun Breaker take that when Seth Rollins is standing in the ring with him standing in the background going, I don't need these guys, right? I mean, the die was cast right then and there. So here we are now, all these months later. Yeah, I mean, the faction hasn't been around for that long, but if the idea is for this, to use this as an opportunity to now elevate Braun Breaker a little sooner than they wanted to, good. Good. This company could use a youth movement. And since Breaker is clearly going to be the heir apparent to the throne here in this company, and he's super over, right? I mean, he's already over. So am I heartbroken that instead of waiting another 6 months or 9 months or another year for the inevitable, which we all know is coming, that they went to it or were forced to go to it a little quicker? No, I'm not. This is an opportunity for them, if this is a real injury, to take a negative and turn it into a positive. Strap the fucking rocket to this guy's back and launch him into the stratosphere. The fans are ready for it. This was the inevitable conclusion to this anyway. We're just skipping ahead by 2 or 3 chapters. Plenty of other stories that you can tell, but I, as a fan, am ready for Braun Breaker to be that guy. And I think he's ready to take the mantle and take over if that's what they choose to do. It excites me now, the possibilities of where this could potentially go. You take a negative and you turn it into a positive. And if Seth Rollins is hurt, and if Seth Rollins can't go, and he has to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship, that sucks for Seth Rollins. But you know what? You do CM Punk and Braun Breaker, and you put the World Heavyweight Championship on Braun Breaker. Why not? What do you have to lose? There are people talking about so many of the young talents in NXT. And like SmackDown, for example, right? They could definitely use some fresh faces on that show. You can't call everybody up, but they have people in NXT who are ready to be called up right now. But you'll hear people throw out like Javon Evans and stuff, right? And Javon Evans has had an incredible few weeks in terms of some of the matches that he's had recently. Sami Zayn, and then the match with Leon Slater. I look at a guy like that, he's 21 years old. And I say to myself, there's no need to rush him up, right? Let him simmer a little bit. So, swerve, because CM Punk is #1 contender, and he is going to challenge now for the World Heavyweight Championship. And we all know how Seth Rollins feels about CM Punk, and Seth Rollins fucked him over at SummerSlam by cashing in his Money in the Bank. He fucked him over at WrestleMania by taking his best friend away from him. And so here we go again. The rivalry continues, and Seth Rollins is simply trying to throw CM Punk off his game by making him believe that Seth Rollins has no friends. He has no friends. He has nobody to watch his back now. He's all by himself. When in fact, the Vision is still very much together. And not only that, they may use this, and this is possible. This could be where that Austin Theory name comes from that Meltzer had in The Observer. This could be an opportunity where Braun Breaker's not going to help him, Bronson Reed's not going to help him, right? You think that he's out of the vision, but then Austin Theory shows up. And he provides Rollins with the assist, helps him retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Then we see Breaker, then we see Reed, and Theory is with them, and they all have a nice laugh at CM Punk's expense. And maybe that's why CM Punk, heading into Survivor Series, is in a position where it's like, you know what, I'm willing to put my feelings and issues in the past aside with someone like Roman Reigns so that we could join forces to take these fucking guys out. That is a possibility. And I'm not even against adding Theory to the Vision, because he's another one of those young guys who just hasn't really been given an opportunity. Not in the last year he hasn't anyway, not under Triple H. But the idea that this is a swerve, coming off of a swerve they already did a few months ago to me, would be incredibly fucking lame. That does not excite me at all. In fact, I think that would be horrible if that's what this ends up being. So, you want to change my mind real quick. If this ends up being a swerve, I am not a fan of that.
Me neither.
Again, I'm not happy that the guy may have gotten injured, but, you take a negative and you turn it into a positive. And I just, again, I like the idea of Braun Breaker now leading this crew. And if they add some new people, you could add an Austin Theory, you could add an Oba Femi to a group like this.
You can add Dragunov. We haven't seen him.
I'm not saying Oba needs to be a part of a faction.
Or you can add Gunter. Well, I'm not sure if Gunter would fit, but who knows? It could happen.
I would rather see him go wreck shop on SmackDown on his own. But if you wanted to, and now you have a real crew where it looks like, okay, these guys, these younger guys are really taking over now, right? That excites me. The idea of this being another Seth Rollins swerve to just get back at CM Punk is fucking lame as shit. And I really hope that's not the direction that they're taking this in. But nobody really knows for sure right now what's going on.
Yeah, we don't. We have to wait till next week if they're going to announce Punk and Rollins for Sunday main event. And the story is that, Rollins is by himself. He had no Heyman, no Breaker, no Reed. He's all alone with just him and CM Punk. Is CM Punk going to win? Because, Rollins had no help. But if that's what they're leading to, that is lame, and that's just stupid. It makes you wonder why they did what they did. It's all just to swerve everybody and make CM Punk think that he's going to win the title because Rollins had no backup? If we do see Austin Theory, and then he joins Rollins, and then they just go back with the Vision, that would be lame and just stupid and kind of worthless. What a waste of what you did here. And then if you do have Braun tournament again, it's not going to mean much. It'll mean special.
Wait and see if we get more reports about Rollins, if he has these tests, and if it is in fact a serious injury, a legitimate injury.
Yeah.
It looks like a legitimate injury right now, but there were a lot of people who thought it was a legitimate injury at Saturday night's main event against LA Knight, when he got hurt. Although I will say, if you go back and watch what happened there, it didn't look like anything out of the ordinary. When he landed on that springboard moonsault, he grabbed his knee. Here, with that coast to coast to Cody, he did land very hard on his shoulder. It is not hard to believe that he would have gotten legitimately injured on that move. But man, what a brutal turn of events or twist of fate if it actually turns out that after faking an injury, he ends up with a legitimate injury. I got more to say about this and the rest of this show. This is your Raw on Netflix. If you think about it, have been there for a few weeks now. Yeah, the way that they have been teasing this dissension, right? This drama of sorts with Rollins the last few weeks heading into Crown Jewel, like I have to win, I have to beat Cody Rhodes, and what happens if I don't? And Heyman is like, well, you're going to lose everybody's respect, and they're not going to believe in your vision anymore. And just the way Rollins was acting, it was almost like he was going to turn on Heyman, right? So there have been some teases there for a few weeks now with this whole thing. But yeah, when he said that I don't need this person, I don't need that person, I did it all by myself. How does that make a Braun Breaker feel? How does that make a Bronson Reed feel? They're just standing there. And we see them every single week, coming out and interfering in each other's matches. like it's just been on repeat for the entire summer. That angry. I don't think I've ever seen this man walk down to the ring with a smile on his face. He's always angry about something. And I do wonder if that interview that Darby Allin gave to Ariel, caveat out there, for in the not too distant future. Women's War Games, I mentioned that. I imagine that these women are going to end up on opposing sides in a Women's War Games match. And I don't remember offhand what the rumored lineup was that Dave mentioned for it. I'm pretty sure all of these women are involved, supposedly involved in War Games, though. You know, if you're kind of looking ahead at what comes next and what's Rhea going to do and spots. And it was one spot too many because Bayley flung Lyra. She's really starting to pick up. Caveat out there. Rest pissed after they lost to Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Arm at one point, and Rollins actually wins.
All right, let's go on to JD from New York.
In October, every player wants to turn his story into history.
And Crown Jewel post show, Rollins made a comment. Monday Night Raw aired at 8 a.m. I didn't get up till 11. I didn't peel myself out of bed till 11:30, man. I was very tired. This weather doesn't really do me good, man. Rain all day yesterday, rain all day today. Felt like one of the cats, man. All the cats had the right idea. Sleep. Everywhere I looked, sleep. Exactly what I did. I took my ass back to bed around 3 o'clock, man. Played a little bit of Battlefield 6. Earlier this afternoon, did some light work, took some notes, played some Battlefield, took a nap, made dinner, watched Raw. Oh, but JD, where's the Raw review, man? I gotta get your opinion on this, JD. For LY 602. Yeah. It was a very eventful Monday Night Raw, to say the least. It was a very eventful show. Predominantly because of the ending. Now, I do have some news articles that I will go over, one from Meltzer and one from Seth, in regards to why the ending potentially went down the way that it did. And I guess to start things off, I will read those because it really gives you guys an idea of what the hell is going on here. Now, let me set this up for you. Crown Jewel, Cody and Seth Rollins had a banger match. They went nearly 30 minutes, and there was one spot in this match where I didn't really think much of it. Many people didn't think much of it. It was a coast-to-coast headbutt. Cody was hanging upside down in one corner. Rollins went to the opposite corner, did a coast-to-coast headbutt. And by the looks of it, now looking back at it, he landed awkwardly when delivering the move. He came down on his left arm. How injured or not Rollins is, nobody knows. He finished the match, and he went on to win the Crown Jewel Championship, which was ultimately the right decision for Seth Rollins. On the Crown Jewel post-show, Rollins made a comment saying that this shoulder or arm injury, that spot, the headbutt, was going to have long-term ramifications. Now, when Rollins had the injury occur before SummerSlam, he didn't really say much of anything. Rollins went into a match with LA Knight on Saturday night's main event, faked an injury, purposely lost the match to play up the fact that he was injured, and we didn't see or hear anything from Rollins until SummerSlam on night one, where he cashed in his Money in the Bank contract. Paul Heyman did most of the talking for him.
Rollins cashed in the contract, beat CM Punk after a brutal match with Gunther. Punk's title reign lasted 5 minutes. They called it the ruse of the century. Now, I think anybody with a working brain watching the show realized that this doesn't really smell like an injury. A lot of people dissected that spot to come to a conclusion that it doesn't look like Rollins got hurt. They played it up as if he was hurt, mixed with the fact that WWE was kind of really pushing their Unreal series on Netflix. Everybody kind of pieced the puzzle together. Rollins went on to win the World Heavyweight Championship and has been the World Heavyweight Champion since. Has the Vision and Seth Rollins been the most entertaining, most exciting, most must-see group in WWE? The answer is no.
Yeah, no.
The answer is fuck no.
They've been kind of boring.
They've largely been boring.
Exactly.
We've got nothing but match after match after match consisting of the Usos and the Bronze. Braun Breaker versus Jimmy Uso. Bronson Reed versus Jey Uso. Braun Breaker versus Jey Uso. Tonight, Bronson Reed versus Jimmy Uso. Roman's been getting involved. Tag team matches consisting of Roman and Jey against the Bronze, or Roman versus Braun Breaker. Or not really. Bronson Reed, not yet anyway. We're going to get that eventually. Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed, not once but twice on PLEs. LA Knight and his issues with the fucking Vision. I mean, WWE, there was a stretch on Monday Night Raw where we got the same main event 2 months straight. I don't know how anybody looks at that and is going to fake react to that.
You know, it's very similar to what they did with the Judgment Day, how they kept feuding with the same people for 2 months every week in the main event. Same thing with the Bloodline and Solo Bloodline, how it was the same thing on SmackDown. And now we're doing the same thing with the Vision. The same old shit.
At some point, you gotta be a real human being. Enough is enough. The group was put together to make Rollins the guy. They wanted to make Rollins into whatever Roman Reigns was. But the thing is, there's only one Roman Reigns, and there will forever be only one Roman Reigns. You cannot recreate what you did with the original OG Bloodline.
Exactly.
There was an authenticity to that. There was a sense of family to that. There was a sense of real, genuine, emotional, relatable emotion to everything that those guys did. Nothing that WWE is going to do to try and copy the blueprint is ever going to come close to the original OG Bloodline, especially when Sami Zayn was in the group trying to be the honorary Uso.
Yeah, that's what they were trying to do. That's what I thought. You know, Seth, I mean, as soon as Paul Heyman joined Seth Rollins and then Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker joined, we all thought it's a bootleg version of Roman Reigns. It's the same thing that we're doing with Sol Sikoa and the MFTs, trying to copy what Roman Reigns did 5 years ago. Only difference is no one can replace or be better than Roman Reigns. It was about family and story. People loved it, and it was one of the best storylines when Sami Zayn got involved. You can't do that here. I mean, people. The Vision have been born for months, and no one cared about the MFTs.
And we saw the story of Roman Reigns' ego just running wild and treating everybody like garbage. Everything else that comes after that is going to be a cheap imitation. Seth Rollins is not Roman Reigns. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are not the Usos. Paul Heyman isn't even the same. He's not the wise man. He's the fucking Oracle. He's not starring in the fucking Matrix. He's Paul Heyman. The group largely was put together for Seth Rollins to be the guy. And no matter how great Seth Rollins is, because let's be honest, he's fucking great.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Seth Rollins because he's never going to be the guy.
He's not going to be what Roman Reigns was, alright? He's already been there at the top before, but he's not going to be the guy like Roman Reigns. He's not going to be what CM Punk was when he was the guy, when he had Paul Heyman. He's like half on their level.
No matter who they put around him. Rollins has been put in a situation and has been placed in an era that he simply is never going to be what he believes he should be.
Yeah.
And I mean that as a true fan. Rollins is going to go down as one of the greatest ever. There is not anybody today outside of a very select few people, Cody, Roman, Punk, that tell a story as good as Rollins. Rollins is an excellent storyteller. Very undervalued and very underappreciated is Seth Rollins. But Seth Rollins is a victim of being in the wrong era at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Roman is the face of the company.
CM Punk was the face too, all those years ago. Roman Reigns the face. Seth Rollins not the face. Seth Rollins is like number 2 or number 3.
No matter how you look at it, title or no title, bloodline or no bloodline,
I'm gonna make it very
Roman
clear.
is the face of the
Seth
company.
Rollins, you're not gonna be.
Roman is the biggest star in the company. Cody is a very, and I mean very, distant second. Cody's the WWE champion. Seth Rollins is not Cody Rhodes. Seth Rollins is not the face of the company. 1A, 1B, Roman, Cody. Rollins is a distant number 2 or 3 behind Cody Rhodes. And it may be subjective when it comes to Rollins, because then you start looking at CM Punk, and CM Punk is probably a bigger star than Seth Rollins is at this current point as well, title or no title.
Exactly. Like I said, CM Punk was at the top 15 years ago. He was the most over guy. He was beloved. He sold merch. He was mega over. He was at the top since he cut the pipe bomb on Vince McMahon in 2011 and he beat John Cena at Money in the Bank in Chicago. That's when he was at the top. He was WWE champion for 434 days. He had a great title reign. He was a Paul Heyman guy. 2012 was his year. Roman Reigns was at the top. He was champion for 4 years. He carried the show since the pandemic. He won that belt in the Thunderdome. He had a great storyline. It was about family. And the storyline got good once Sami Zayn was involved. And it culminated to a great moment at WrestleMania.
107 Carnage in the chat says Seth is Randy Savage 2.0. 100% spot on. And there's nothing wrong with that because Randy Savage is...
Why is there a commercial? Hold on. Alright.
100 be duplicated. Rollins is not Savage, but being compared to Randy Savage in this context is not a bad thing. Savage was always and forever going to be number 2 behind Hulk Hogan. Some guys have to kind of own up to it and be okay with that. There's nothing wrong with being a number 2. There's nothing wrong with being a guy that sits in the position where Seth Rollins sits. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. I say this as a fan, and I say this as a realist. The group itself was a good idea on paper. Let's take a visionary. Let's take somebody who is a master storyteller and surrounds him with 2 youthful talents that we consider the future of the company in Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. More so Bron Breakker. But Bronson Reed should also be in the discussion as well. Whoever else was going to come after that, if there was anybody to come after that to be added to the group, I don't know. It was a good idea. But you got to understand what happened at WrestleMania. Paul Heyman was a centerpiece for a story that consisted of CM Punk being owed a favor for working War Games the prior year, helping the Bloodline. He only did it because he knew Paul Heyman would say yes to him. I'm only doing this for him. Heyman was largely ignored when Solo's Bloodline put him out at Madison Square Garden literally a year ago. Literally a year ago. CM Punk said, I will work War Games for Paul Heyman. I'm not doing it for your family. He owes me a favor. We didn't know what that favor was. We found out what that favor was going into WrestleMania. We thought that CM Punk wanted a main event spot at WrestleMania, which he largely got in the main event of Night 1. Still considered the main event, by the way, even for the naysayers. But it wasn't that. I want you to walk me down the aisle at WrestleMania. And I want you to be in my corner. I want you to be my wise man. And not Roman's. Now that caused tension between Punk and Roman. That caused tension between Heyman and Reigns. It was a vicious love triangle that played out in the main event of Night 1 at WrestleMania. On one of the last few episodes of Raw, I think it was Raw, Seth Rollins had the opportunity to curb stomp Paul Heyman. And he looked him dead in the eye and said, I could have ended you right here, but I'm not going to do it. And then he mentioned the word favor. He mentioned the word favor to Paul Heyman. I will spare you if you give me a favor. I will spare you here. I will do you this favor in exchange for favor from you to me. It's basically what he said. We all wondered what that meant going into WrestleMania. We did find out at the end of that match that Paul Heyman not only betrayed CM Punk, but he betrayed Roman Reigns for a favor that he owed Seth Rollins. This was not some master plan. This was not some coordinated long-term vision for Paul Heyman to be paired with Seth Rollins. It came about because of what happened with CM Punk and Roman Reigns, with Paul Heyman as the centerpiece for what they were going through. Rollins only took advantage of it, and then it spawned into something else. They added Braun Breaker on the Monday Night Raw following WrestleMania, and this group, who went unnamed, by the way, for 4 months, was a thing. They added Bronson Reed, and then they became the Vision. Paul Heyman was the Oracle. It was basically a Walmart version of the OG Bloodline, without the character. Fast forward to tonight. From me to you guys, we got 2,400 people in here, thank you. From me to you guys, I even posted on social media today because there was no avoiding it. It was all over social media. The first thing I saw when I signed in was the ending of Raw. The first thought in my mind was, this is a work, bro. This is all a work. There's no way I'm looking at this head on and I'm saying, you're going to break up the Vision now? You're going to boot Rollins out of the group now with 6 weeks to go before War Games inside Survivor Series. You're going to break up the group that has largely been rumored to be one of the featured teams inside War Games. Why would they do that? First thing I thought about was a work. Then when you say that, obviously, well, why comes along with that? Why is this a work? Well, why was the first instance a work? Why would Rollins take a tsunami and a spear from Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed to play off this work? Well, I don't know. Why did he lose to LA Knight to play off the first work? He willingly took a loss and ended a match that got cut short to take a loss to LA Knight to see his vision play out. Who was the one going after the World Heavyweight Championship? CM Punk. CM Punk was in the main event of SummerSlam for night 1 against Gunther. Seth Rollins has said it himself. As long as there's a breath in his lung, he will ruin CM Punk's chance, any chance he gets, of becoming the world champion. Those are words that have gone on to ring true ever since he uttered them when John Cena had him in the STF. That's inside the Elimination Chamber. Again, if you guys remember. Now we're looking at CM Punk again as the number 1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. Who knows when that match is going to take place? I would assume it's going to be Saturday night's main event, coming up in about 3 weeks. They're not going to wait till Survivor Series to do that. Now CM Punk once again finds himself to be the number 1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. And who is the World Heavyweight Champion? It is Seth Rollins. So the first thing in my mind was that this was all another elaborate work to screw CM Punk and to get more footage and another episode for WWE Unreal. But again, the question remains, why would he take a spear from Braun Breaker? Why would he take a tsunami from Bronson Reed? I don't know. Only Seth Rollins can answer those questions. I'm going to read to you the article that Fightful put up. And this is very interesting. Because this, once again, is just like the injury that happened before SummerSlam when he cashed in, the leg injury. Rollins looks to have sustained an injury at Crown Jewel. Rollins was seen backstage and around Australia in a sling after the Crown Jewel match with Cody Rhodes. It's widely suspected internally that he sustained the injury on the coast-to-coast headbutt, but then finished the match. He noted that the move would have long-lasting ramifications. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean long-lasting ramifications? It could mean anything, really. Does it mean long-lasting ramifications in the way of, well, the championship's going to be in trouble now because I injured myself and I can't defend the championship the way that it should be defended? Or does long-lasting ramifications mean CM Punk is going to suffer again long-lasting ramifications because of my elaborate ruse? Rollins broke the distant fall with his arm. It's pro wrestling, so anything is possible. This was again treated as a legitimate injury internally. WWE has been very, very, very secretive, especially with situations like this, because they want to conserve it or preserve it for Unreal. To be clear, says Seth, much of the details around Rollins right now are very secretive and riddled with speculation. Specific details of the injury were being kept very quiet. One WWE source said individually, not on behalf of the company, that an actual break of Rollins' arm in this case would probably end up better than a shoulder injury, because Rollins could be back in December from a break. However, they said it would be unlikely they could avoid a drastic change if it was more serious, like a shoulder injury. Now, he was being careful filming segments at Raw and was hiding the injury with baggier clothes on, which is the first thing that I noticed. Rollins tonight didn't really move his arm from this position. Let me use the left arm. He didn't really use his arm at all on the show. He was holding the championship up with his left arm. He had his arm pretty much resting on his chest, always in this fixed position. Even in the backstage segment with Paul Heyman, it was always like this. Then there was an instance instance in the backstage segment with Paul Heyman, where Heyman actually, and I don't know if this was scripted or not, or if it was just a lack of judgment from Paul Heyman in that moment, touched the arm like he was giving him a loving embrace, and Rollins was like, pushing it back. And then Heyman said, I'm sorry. He went on to cut a very emphatic, very loving promo about Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker and how proud he is. This is the best moment of his career, seeing them two grow up before his very eyes. He puts this in the same category as meeting his wife for the first time and watching the birth of his daughter for the first time. I mean, he really...
If you're an illegal alien, this runway is your future, because you're headed home. I'm Christy Nome, United States Secretary of Homeland Security. If you download the CBP Home app and you safely self-deport...
He then came out in the main event, and what took me by surprise is he wasn't doing this anymore. He wasn't doing this. He didn't have his arm in that. His arm was down. He was walking normally. So if his arm was in a sling all night, did he take the sling off for this segment? Did he take this sling off for this segment because we knew that he would eventually eat a spear and then a tsunami, and it would be easier to do those maneuvers without his arm stuck in this position? Or did he take the sling off because maybe he wasn't wearing it all night, pretending like he was wearing it all night? Maybe he was wearing it all night to give us the effect. But was he wearing it, not really needing to wear it, to play off another ruse? Because when his arm is in this position all night, and then in the main event segment coming out to attack CM Punk after he won the #1 contendership against LA Knight and Jey Uso, he had no arm in his sleeve. His arm was down. Now, if someone's arm is injured to the extent, like they said Rollins' arm is injured, why would he be without the sling? If he's injured, he wears the sling. If he's injured, he's not on TV. He opted to stay. He opted to be on TV with the injury. Nobody really knows for sure. But again, if he's not injured, why on earth would he not be wearing the sling? How injured is he really if he was okay to operate without wearing the sling? Again, it is not wrong to immediately think after especially watching Raw, going back and looking at it. I had all day to sit with this footage, and I had all day to sit with these clips. Then I watched Raw tonight at normal time. It is okay if you think. Don't let anybody judge you. WWE did this to us one time before, not too long ago, literally in August. It is okay to think that this is all another elaborate work. Everything lines up for it to be that. He did it once, why won't he do it again? Rollins is a master of his craft. Rollins is always looking for ways to prop up his character and create a moment. He is a visionary. His entire group is called the Vision.
You know, a lot of people are angry.
What does he see in the future of this vision? What does he see in the future of WWE? But one thing remains. CM Punk was the #1 contender going into SummerSlam. He beat Gunther for the World Championship. Rollins came out and pulled the ruse of the century. Now we're back with the same cast of characters again for a second time this year in as little as 3 months. And you mean to tell me that you're going to blast people and call them wrong for thinking that this is another ruse? When it all lines up to being that very same ruse. The only difference is it's an arm injury and not a leg injury now. That is the first thing that I thought. Rollins was credited heavily from over half a dozen sources that Fightful spoke to for finishing the match, staying in Australia, and working Monday Night Raw. Not just that, but doing a promo, backstage segment, and a physical segment. Again, how injured is he? How injured is he? If if the guy is on the verge of having a shoulder injury, now, like, the last time we saw a shoulder injury occur on Monday Night Raw, it was Liv Morgan. And she's still out. And that was nasty. Why would they put Rollins in a position with something like that, a shoulder injury, to further risk injury to their World Heavyweight Champion? And then you look at the situation with Liv Morgan. I mean, the report just said that they would rather his arm be broken and not a shoulder injury, because at least he'd be back in a shorter amount of time. Why would they have him go out there with a shoulder injury? Why would they have him go out there if the arm was potentially broken? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Though details were foggy, the hope from staff backstage was that because Rollins was cleared for the segment, that the injury might not be as bad as feared. So if the injury is not as bad as feared, why did we obviously rush plans that were supposed to take place next year, by all accounts? Why did we speed them up by 6 or 7 months? This is another question. If Rollins is not hurt as badly as we seem to see that he might not be, again, let's go back to what I said. If he was so injured, why is he out of the sling? If he's so injured, why is he taking a spear? If he's so injured, why is he taking a fucking tsunami with a broken fucking arm or a shoulder injury? It doesn't make any sense. Those are the two moves you don't want anybody to take if they are suffering from an injury as discussed here. So if it was a tweak and he got medically cleared to go out there and do these moves and do these segments, the next line of questioning is, why did they end this faction with Seth Rollins as the leader? Why did they speed up 6 or 7 months of storyline, which more than likely would have played out next year with Braun Breaker going on his own and betraying the Vision? Why did they speed it up? This is another line of questioning. The Monday Night Raw ratings haven't really been what they expected to be on Netflix. This is readily available information. Now, we are in Monday Night Football season. Everything's going to be down. Views everywhere are down. Everything else is going on, much more important than pro wrestling. We got the MLB, NL, and ALCS. We got hockey starting up, basketball starting up, football, college football, NFL, you name it. Everything going on right now is more exciting than pro wrestling. There are several different aspects as to why WWE decided to pull the trigger. Maybe the Vision wasn't working out. Maybe people were getting bored of the Vision. Maybe the reason why the Monday Night Raw ratings have gone stagnant and have dipped is because they're tired of the fucking group. They're tired of the storyline. They're tired of seeing the same old shit. It's basically a bloodline cosplay. But Seth Rollins is the leader, who's not Roman Reigns. With Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, who are not Jimmy, Jay, and Sammy. And Paul Heyman basically doing the same thing that he was doing for the last 4 years. Telling worse stories than he was then. Maybe that's why. Maybe they realized they needed a change. It wasn't working out. Fan interest was waning. Or how about this? We always flame WWE about not taking risks. They're too safe. Triple H just gave you an absolutely unexpected ending to Monday Night Raw, so we can't really say tonight anyway that the man was playing it safe. We're asking for an exciting show, or more exciting show. We're asking for some unpredictability. We're asking for something to get us excited, to get us talking. Can't really hold him accountable for that tonight because he did everything that we've been asking Triple H to do. This now gets us into a situation where the two future pieces of the company are going to be the stars. The Vision may or may not continue under the leadership and tutelage of Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman better with Braun Breaker than he is Seth Rollins. I think everybody can really get behind that. Didn't really feel like a natural partnership. It felt very manufactured and forced with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins. Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker, Paul Heyman and Bronson Reed certainly seems like a more natural fit. Maybe WWE just wanted to go in a different direction. Here's another why. Another line of questioning. Why did they do what they did tonight? Again, I don't know. But I also don't know why they would boot Rollins out of the group, who's been a predominant heel for a large portion of time. He's been a heel. He's a better heel. Why did they do what they did tonight to basically turn Rollins into a babyface to go wrestle CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship? Now that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that, and why would they make that decision? Again, unless Rollins is really injured and they strip the World Heavyweight Championship from him. Again, I don't know. Do I think Rollins is injured? Yes, I do. I just don't know how severe the injury is or isn't. Nothing is really man-thing tonight, from my point of view. Rollins was like this all night, and then he comes out in the main event segment without wearing an arm sling. Why would they set up CM Punk for the #1 contendership at Saturday night's main event to go against Rollins, and have Rollins booted out of the group to go wrestle CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship? Is Rollins going to wrestle CM Punk as a babyface? Or is Seth Rollins going to wrestle Punk as a heel? What happens to the Vision? What happens to War Games? I know there was a rumored War Games match put out by Dave Meltzer, which I guess now is pretty much blown up. Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu, CM Punk, and the Usos, or at least one of the Usos, maybe LA Knight, against the Vision. It would be the Vision, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Brock Lesnar, who's got a loose affiliation now with Paul Heyman again, and Austin Theory was mentioned in the report. Clearly none of that's happening now if this is the direction that they're going. Maybe War Games doesn't even consist of the Vision. Roman Reigns just told the Usos at Crown Jewel on Saturday, "I'll see you all at Christmas." Maybe he's not even coming back.
Order anything to manage everything. With Granger's endless product options, you can work smarter, not harder.
I expect Roman to be there. Maybe the Vision isn't planned for War Games. Maybe what we saw on Friday with the MFTs now back at full strength. Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, Tola Tonga, JC Mateo, and Solo Sikoa. They just started a feud with the Wyatts. Maybe that's the War Games. Maybe it's the MFTs versus the Wyatt 6 inside War Games. Maybe they're going in a different direction this year. Which, again, I can't fault them. Because there's been some semblance of the bloodline in every single main roster War Games since they've brought it to the main roster. It's been the same cast of characters. It's been the same vibe. Maybe we need to get other facts.
Yeah. I mean, it was the bloodline, and then it was the Judgment Day against the babyface, because they were a big factor in why. Then with the OG bloodline and the new bloodline, are we doing something different? The MFTs and the Wyatt 6? I don't know if fans will be interested in seeing that. We just won't know. We got 6 weeks until War Games.
Actions inside the War Games to really keep its special feeling instead of having it feel the same old shit every single year. Do I think Rollins is injured? Yes, I do. The things that Rollins said tonight could be misconstrued as maybe that's an elaborate plan, but he's been saying these things for the last 2 weeks now. This is not something that just came about tonight. Rollins has been saying, I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. Like Romans needed the bloodline and Cody needed me. I don't need anybody. I did this all on my own. Then why the fuck are you getting a vision group together with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed with Paul Heyman as your quote-unquote wise man? If you need to do anything, why aren't you doing it alone? He's not. He's got help. They've clearly helped him get to where he is. He got a big ego now because he beat Cody Rhodes all on his own. Now he don't need anybody. He's been saying this now for a good 2 or 3 weeks. I don't need anybody. Braun Breaker's body language clearly showed us tonight that he was listening very intently. Braun Breaker did not walk out with the vision during the opening segment of the show. He trailed behind. There was fan footage. He did not walk with them. He was clearly walking at a big distance. Braun Breaker's attitude all night was very indifferent to everything Rollins said. His body language throughout the night indicated that something is brewing there. Something's going on up here with Braun Breaker. We didn't think that it would be played out tonight. He usually is very crazy, but tonight just felt different for Braun Breaker. I do think that he's hurt. Injured enough to take the belt off of him? Only time will tell there. I can't really say yet. I just don't understand why they booted him out of the group for him to now defend the championship against CM Punk, whether that's at Saturday Night's Main Event or Survivor Series for the World Heavyweight Championship. Braun Breaker held up the World Heavyweight Championship, which told us that he wants the World Heavyweight Championship. What does that mean? Again, I don't have any answers to these questions. The report goes on to finally say Rollins is going to be going under testing this week. That was the same verbiage that was used during the first injury. He would be evaluated. Now, if we don't hear anything about Rollins' injury and it's not medically reported via the dirt sheets or WWE officially, then we're going to start to wonder what the fuck is going on, because Rollins' injury was not reported. We got no diagnosis. We heard that he went to James Andrews to go get medically evaluated. Nothing about his injury the first time. They kept that shit so tight-lipped you didn't fucking know a thing.
Wait, what?
We didn't have a diagnosis, a time frame, nothing. I feel like we're going to get more of the same here. He's going to go under to get further testings here in the coming week. As far as the creative, what is and wasn't planned, we'll get some more details on that as time goes on. Last week, when Wrestling Observer reported the plans for Survivor Series and War Games, we were told that the lineup that Dave actually reported was actually an option. Today, when we followed up, it was largely dismissed as not being the specific direction. WWE had Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed attack Rollins at the end of Raw, which was hinted to us was heavily creative pivot for WWE without being explicitly stated. Fightful Select spoke to a source in WWE that indicated that they heard that a Braun Breaker split wasn't originally planned or in the cards until next year, 2026. One idea that I had, and I don't really think he needs it. I don't think Braun Breaker does the faction shit. I don't think he needs it. I don't think it's going to benefit him at all. Braun Breaker legitimately took the reins tonight. Braun Breaker acted like the new leader. He made the decision. This wasn't a Paul Heyman thing. Paul Heyman basically mouthed to Braun Breaker tonight after the first spear, "What the fuck are you doing?" Word for word. Braun Breaker made the decision. Bronson Reed did not. Paul Heyman did not. So this wasn't an elaborate plan from Paul Heyman to screw Seth Rollins, even though he did question Rollins if he lost to Cody Rhodes. You're going to make me question why I joined you and I left the tribal chief. Braun Breaker made this decision. Braun Breaker got Bronson Reed on board by saying, choose wisely. It's either me or not. Bronson Reed quickly said, yes, I'm joining you, Tsunami. He then took Paul Heyman by the suit jacket and said the same thing. It's either me or not. Paul Heyman emphatically raised both Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker's arms in the air and gave a look, which basically all but said, fuck you, Seth Rollins. Bron Breakker doesn't need a group. Bron Breakker just needs a ring and destruction. So does Bronson Reed. One of the ideas that I had thinking when I was watching this show is that the vision continues. With Paul Heyman as the Oracle. If they want to keep the Vision name, anything that Paul Heyman is assigned to, I'm going to be heavily invested in. Paul Heyman, anything that Paul Heyman is a part of creatively, anything that Paul Heyman has a say in as far as characters and who he wants to work with, I am going to be invested in him and whoever he works with. Always. That will never change until the day the man is in the grave. Does the Vision continue on without Seth Rollins? Do we see other youthful stars collectively join forces as the Vision? The Vision doesn't need to mean visionary for Seth Rollins. The Vision could very well mean the vision of the future of WWE. Could we get an Austin Theory involved? Could we get an Ethan Page? Could we get a Ricky Saints? Could we get a Tony D'Angelo that was rumored going into Clash in Paris? The Vision could still continue, because you know WWE, you know Triple H loves his factions. I feel like WWE and Triple H can't run a creative without a fucking faction. Bron Breakker doesn't need it. Let me emphatically say that again. He doesn't need it, but I don't really see the Vision going away. They are a duo. Heyman will be with them. They very well could add others around them. They could still very well be a part of War Games. But where does this leave Rollins? Again, I don't know. Because on the surface level right now, on the night that it occurred, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. You blew up plans for an injury that you don't really have any real diagnosis on. I find it very iffy. I find it very weird that WWE doesn't have a real diagnosis on Rollins 48 hours coming out of Crown Jewel. Like, I think their medical team is fucking well enough to know if Rollins has a broken arm, or if he's got a separated shoulder, or some sort of shoulder injury. Again, nothing is really mathing for me here. But I will say this, at the end of the night, we want the Triple H to be a little bit more unpredictable. We want the Triple H to start playing it less safe. We want the Triple H to throw a wrench into the fucking gears and blow the shit up. I can't really sit here and say I don't like it. Because it's given us a fucking talking point now that's gotten everybody excited. Because we believe in Heyman, we believe in Reed, we believe in Breakker. Rollins was the one that nobody really wanted to see. They were waning interest. The feud with CM Punk wasn't really going anywhere. You poll a majority of the people, they don't want to see another CM Punk and Seth Rollins match, let alone continue this fucking feud. I have now thought myself out of this, and I don't want Rollins and Punk anywhere near each other anymore. I would move Punk to SmackDown. Who's to say Netflix doesn't have a say in this? The ratings are fucking falling. Maybe they want youth. Maybe they want Punk. Maybe they want somebody else. I don't know. I would move Punk over to SmackDown, and I have Punk winning the Rumble, and I have Punk and Cody in the main event of WrestleMania. Never mind fucking Rollins. Do what you want with Rollins. Rollins Reigns, Rollins Zayn, Rollins Breakker. For all we know, Rollins ain't going to be the World Heavyweight Champion in about 3 weeks. On the off chance that he is not readily available and he will need to vacate the championship.
Well, who wants to see another Punk and Rollins?
What do we do?
We won't know.
I've seen a lot of opinion. I've seen a lot of people
we don't know.
chiming in on this.
They're going to do what they did at SummerSlam when he swerved on them, think he was injured.
It doesn't mean that because the Vision has imploded, that all of a sudden we're going to cancel War Games. WWE could absolutely still hold a men's and women's war games. Hopefully just one. We don't need a women's war games. WWE, I've seen some people say, well, let's recreate the Deadly Games tournament. Now, the rumor was that John Cena is going to have a tournament to determine his final opponent on December 13th in Washington, D.C. for his final match. Now, we don't need back-to-back tournaments on TV to come up with a John Cena final opponent and then determine who the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion is.
Domino's has the best deal ever right now where you can get any pizza, any topping for $9.99. No, taking advantage. We got the large...
And determine... I don't know how likely that is. Again, I am not completely sold on the fact that Rollins is injured. My first inclination was coming out of the LA Knight match on Saturday night's main event on July 12th. My first inclination was he's not hurt. This is a work. Whereas this time, my first thought is he's hurt. You're going to have to give me a couple of days to assess the situation here, just like we did with that first instance. It was only more and more likely that this is a work, a whole week, 2 weeks, this will work. There's no way that this guy's injured. This is one night. Monday Night Raw took place literally 12 hours ago, 10 hours ago. I'm going to let this one sit for a little bit. Obviously, we'll talk about it more on TNT tomorrow with Solid Monster. We'll talk about this again, obviously, come Friday if there's any news when we're live for SmackDown. Obviously, Raw next week back in Sacramento in the United States here. I just don't know yet. But my first thought is, yes, he's hurt. It was certainly an interesting way to go off the air, though. Certainly an interesting way to go off the air. We're going to get into this Monday Night Raw post-show. I thank you guys very much for hanging out with me tonight. We got 3,000 people in here on a Monday night. Thank you very much. I want to make sure I get my sponsor plug in here. You guys are great. Tonight we are sponsored by Private Internet Access. You guys want a shot to go watch the WWE PLEs and not have to pay the ESPN prices? Well, I've linked up because I care about you guys a lot with Private Internet Access. You guys want it? It was actually very good. Good enough where I actually wish they put it on the fucking PLE on Saturday. 16 minutes. Dominic Mysterio was incredibly over here. Very much pro-Dom. In fact, more Dom than Penta in the opening match. We got a lot of dirty Dom chants here. Penta did his usual spiel. There was a spot where Dom charged at Penta out.
Yeah, Dominic getting over, just like Sami Zayn. Now, how long? I wonder when they're gonna drop the IC title. Okay, he just beat Penta. I don't think Rusev should beat him. I wonder who's gonna beat Dominic. There's no one being built up for the to take down the IC title. And don't forget, he still has the AAA Mega Championship. Is there another World Collide that's coming up? That they announced it? I wonder when they're gonna lose that. I think he might pretty soon.
Side and Penta gave him a back body drop onto the announce table, and Dom hit the announce table with a fucking... It was like an explosion. Massive thud on the commentary table. The commentary table is now rivaling the NXT Performance Center parking lot for the most dangerous spot in all WWE. Every single week. They went to a commercial break literally within 90 seconds, usual WWE garbage. We come back from the break. Penta is now in control of Dom, hits a springboard crossbody for 2. Dominic on the outside drove Penta into the ring. I'm not thinking that they take the belt off Rusev yet, or Dominic yet, to put it on Rusev. I just can't fully see them committing to that yet. But there is something that happened later on in the show where Dominic has basically thrown his Judgment Day brothers into the line of fire and has, without their consent, gotten them a tag team title match. So I wonder if that's going to come into play when he does have to wrestle Rusev next week for the IC title. But I thought this was largely a very good TV match. Crowd was very much into it. Dominic has gotten a hell of a lot better than I would say even 12 months ago. He's incredibly over, and it's great to see. I am a little bit more pro-Dominic than I was, and I didn't really get a sense of Dominic being all that great, or I didn't really see what the special appeal was with Dominic, but he's slowly changing my mind. And I think he is very, very... I don't want to say he's like the future of the company or anything, but I do think that he's going to be a hugely successful star. That's all I'll say. And I very much enjoy what he does within the Judgment Day. Jackie Redmond. She interviewed LA Knight. Redmond said that...
Well, I'm going to end the video. It's been long enough. It's getting late. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the support. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Please subscribe to my channel. I will do SmackDown live stream on Friday. Now, I will upload some... I think I will upload some WWE 2K25 videos. I will upload NBA 2K26 My Career videos. Until then, I'll see you guys later.